Hi, everybody. I wanted to say thank you for being a supporter of the Sedge and Salt podcast. And here's a special treat. Kelly had reached out and said, was there anything I could send to all of you that would be kind of an extra bonus? And I don't really have PDFs or anything I could share. So I thought I would share some fiber processing as a quick little tutorial. So I've got here a bundle of Dogbane that was stripped very end of season. So just after the outer bark had started to rot away, but the fiber was still there. So it's essentially just what I think of as nature retted. I would do the same thing for stinging nettle. You can do this with hemp stalks. You can do this with flax. So any of those bast fibers, leave them out in the rain for a bit of time and just keep checking. And you want to be able to strip the fiber off easily and not have it break. You can always stop the retting process, rinse off, get your fibers dry, and if they are feeling under-retted, meaning that the waxy pigment binding is still really clinging, go back and ret again by laying it out in a damp field for a while. If you over-ret, you've got rot, so you don't want that. So always kind of err to the side of caution. So here's a bundle of Dogbane that I've been saving to process. And lots of you probably have worked with Dogbane, so I thought it would be kind of an interesting project to just show you if you wanted to spin this for clothing as opposed to making rope, here's how I would start. So I'm gonna just move this into a position. Actually, I'm gonna, sorry, give me a moment. I'm gonna pin my own video because it makes it a little easier for me to see what you're seeing. Okay, so I'm going to use a carder. Now, there's lots of different kinds of carders. Sometimes a carder can just be something like a dog brush, dog comb, or a cat comb. So you can see where the teeth are on that for thickness. And something that's wonderful is if you can find carders that have different space gaps between those teeth. When I have an option like this, I like to start with a carder that's got a bit more space between the teeth. It just means that I can be a little more gradual in my carding and I'm not gonna lose as much fiber. So really important thing, I'm gonna take this bundle and I'm gonna wrap it around my finger once like this so that I can be pulling lots of tension on the bundle and it's not gonna move in my hand. And then I'm gonna keep the carder is in a solid position. The carder isn't doing the combing. The fiber is actually going to comb through the carder. So I always, when I'm teaching this to people, I say, imagine that you have been camping for a couple of weeks and you forgot your brush or your comb. So your hair has not seen any kind of detangling device for a while. And you always start at the tip, right? You don't want to go right down to the root because that just hurts. And so the same way, we want to start at the very end of our fiber, and you can see already how this is getting to be just nice and clean. And here I've got all of the short fibers as well as any kind of barky bits that were clinging. So I'm going to just slowly work my way. Oh, I went a little bit high on that one. I've got to really pull. So I'm going to work my way on both sides of this tail. And I can take this fiber just off of there for the moment and put it to the side. This is a really dusty job. So if you can do this outside, it's definitely beneficial to doing it indoors or put a mask on. So what I'm going to end up with is a few different byproducts, if you will. You might hear my air filter kicking into high gear behind me as I'm combing. Okay, so you can start to see now that this is getting to be nice and refined. The comb is really opening up the fiber at this point. So I would do both sides of the tail here. And then I would come to a finer carder and come through and give that basically a polish. Now, if you've ever seen flax being processed, this is essentially what we're doing is using the carders as a hackle. Hackles are metal spikes on a board that you're drawing the fiber through. So I can really see how nice and clean my fibers are coming up there. And then what I'm left with, I've got fiber here and fiber there. And that's what came off of the first carder. So this just looks like a mess of chaos. What I'm going to do to kind of start to organize this mess of chaos is catch it back onto an empty carder, and I'm going to pull it just off the bottom of the teeth. So I'm not actually packing a carder as if I was carding wool. And I'll grab a little dog comb here. Carders are quite expensive, but these dog combs, you can pick them up for anywhere $12 to $15. Get to them. The great thing about this one is it's kind of a self-cleaning, which is great for flipping between different fibers. And again, I'm pinching really hard here so that the fiber isn't all being taken away onto the teeth. So what I'm working at doing is separating, I'm cleaning the fibers, but I'm also separating that big bundle into different types of fiber, different lengths of fiber. And if I've got some vegetable matter in there, I can just still be kind of picking that out with my fingers. But there's basically one grade. I'm going to just pop that to the side. And then I'm going to come back to what I've got on my carder here. I'm going to pick that up again and drop it on to the carder one more time. And I can start to grab, if you've ever, I think of this as being like grating willow, and that's what gave me the thought to try processing fiber this way, is having learned willow grating from Alistair Heseltine, where he puts all of his stalks in a big bucket and just is pulling the 8-foot rods out first, and then he works his way down to the 7-foot rods. I realized if I just line up a bunch of tow to be held on the, so tow is the short fiber as opposed to our line, and grab that end and pull, and then I can clean that off, and I've got a nice section of very long line that would be able to probably be added to my line. This is a little silky and soft relative to what I usually find with nettle threads. But I'm trying to keep the fibers as much as I can. I'm using the teeth to just line up and orient the fibers so that they're all running in one direction, as opposed to, if you're familiar with spinning wool and making what's called woolen style spinning, where your fibers are all kind of mixed up going every which way and you get lots of air held in your spinning. This is more like a worsted style where you're going to have a tighter, stronger twist. So I'm going to end up with probably 4 or 5 different grades of fiber. And by grade, I mean length. So I'm going to just keep creating little piles of the fiber and grabbing always just at that end what I can there to pull off and card. And when those look nice and clean and they're lined up, I will either start a new pile if it's a new length, or add it to the length I already have. You can see there I've got like one long one in that pile. I'm not worried about it too much. So when I'm spinning, I find it very, very challenging to spin fiber that has both short fibers and long fibers mixed, because the process of drafting and adding twist, if I've got short fibers and long fibers together, my hands can't quite figure out how far away they need to be from each other in order to be able to actually draft, pull the fibers apart sufficiently without actually having the drop spindle drop. So as I get down to shorter and shorter here, those fibers are going to be getting to be messier and messier in the card, because I'm also leaving all of that wood debris behind. Just kind of pick that out as I go. Sometimes I get really thick, especially with wild fibers. This happens a lot with nettle, where there will be kind of a thicker piece, and those can just get tossed to the side, especially if you can save them for cordage, but especially if you're wanting to spin anything that you're going to want to wear against your skin, you're going to want to not have those little chafy bits that are problematic. So now when I get down to this last little bit, I'm going to grab my cards again as a pair, and I'll get some of that bark bit out of there. And now I'm going to just do the lightest amount of a card here. So the more that I'm carding, the more these fibers are starting to kind of break down and become shorter and silkier and shorter and silkier. And I can card obsessively until I've got really fantastic paper pulp. And I don't want to do that because I want to be able to still spin these fibers. So I have to be a little conscious of how much I'm carding, and just pulling out again some of those bits that I don't want on my skin. Now you can see from here, again, I turn the carder upside down or backwards, you can see now off the back I've got those long lines. It's a really perfect example of where I can just grab what is the longer pieces to pull out, catch any remaining barky bits, papery outer bits that are clinging to that, and add that to that pile. And then when I get down to what is my shortest of fiber here, this is usually going to be kind of 1/2 inch to 1.5 inches. It's quite short. I think of this as being what is fantastic material to often blend with something like fireweed fluff or milkweed fluff. There's probably you could blend it with cotton if you wanted, but basically any other fiber that is of a similar length. So I'm going to pull this fiber off, load up the carder with some of it, but not all of it. And I'm going to actually take here is some fireweed fluff that still has little seeds in it. You can probably see those seeds on the, sorry, this is Dogbane, not fireweed. The seeds are so tiny and minuscule on it that I don't worry about pulling out those little brown seeds. I'm not sure if that's coming across on the camera. They are going to kind of fluff out in this process all on their own. So I'm going to just put a little bit of that on my carder. Oof, it's getting up my nose. Really good outside task. To access the fiber in any seed fiber that is really blowy, you can always put a little bit of water from a spray bottle on. I try to not get my fibers too wet when I'm spinning them, because making them wet makes them sticky and very hard to draft. But if you are going to be fiber processing one day and spinning another day, you can at least manage those really fluffy, light seed heads that are made for catching air and dispersal. You can make them a little heavier by putting a bit of moisture on them. So now I'm adding in that last bit of the short Dogbane. And when I flip my carder over, I'm just going to take that opportunity to pick out some of that woody debris that was sitting on the inside of the carders. And I like to flip my carders at least twice, because you've got what was sitting on the carder that does not actually get moved. And Karen Barnaby, one of my spinning gurus, as she puts it with carding, the teeth of the carders are really holding the fiber more than they are scratching the fiber. So think of using the carders as more like a kiss on the cheek than a slap on the face, how you want your carders touching each other. Okay, now if you've never done any work with carders, again, this part confuses people. So I'm going to do it slowly on my last round and walk you through it. So when I look at my carders, I can see that the teeth are all facing that way. So the teeth face towards the handle. So when I've got two carders side by side like this, the teeth are going away from each other. So that's why when the teeth are like this, the fiber is being held as I'm pulling it through. When I want to rotate this fiber and turn it upside down, what I need to do is pull it across so it's coming away in the direction that the teeth will release it. So I'm going to come from the back of the carder and roll towards the handle, and that is going to lift the fiber up off of that side. And then I can do the same thing here, where I'm going to come again towards the handle, and it's lifted up pretty much all the fiber, and there it is. So that fiber has kind of rotated now a couple of times. And now, maybe one more. And you get to choose how much you want to blend your fiber. I can see here, I've got very white silky bits where the seed fluff is still very evident. And that can be quite beautiful in spinning, where I end up with that showing as like little white slubs in my fiber. I've still got an awful lot of wildness in this, but we're going to leave it at that. And now a tool that is great to have is a chopstick. You can use a pencil. And let me just get debris off my lap. Now I'm going to put this down right on the end there and gently roll that off the carder. So again, I'm rolling in the direction of the teeth so that the fiber will just roll off. And I end up with what's called a puni, P-U-N-I, and that's typically used for cotton as a short fiber. So it's just basically a mini roll egg. If you're accustomed to spinning wool, roll egg is the term that's used. So now what we've got is a puni, which is our shortest fiber. Oh, we have got a whole lot of mid-length. It's going to be about like that. The fibers are nicely lined up. I've got longer line yet again. And then this was like my very first, so you can start to see the difference of it. Now, all of that can be spun together, but you want to have it in your hands at different times. So I'm going to give a little spinning demonstration. And the shirt that I made, oh, fluff up my nose. This is the nettle shirt that I made. And the back here that's pink is Dogbane. There's like a little white stripe of milkweed right there. And this kind of mid-tone is Dogbane and nettle blended together. And what I did for this was spin all of my line linen on one spindle, and then I spun all of my shorter fibers on another spindle, and then I blended those together. I spun the two together so that I had knit line or line to knit with that was really strong because it had this long fiber, but it also quite airy and a little bit more woolly textured than just the sort of tight line that would be more akin to what a linen tea towel would look like. I wanted something a little slubbier. So I'm going to take a drop spindle and start with this one. Now, if you're brand new to drop spindles, stay away from the Ashford student spindle. You're not gonna like it. It's not gonna work for you. What you want to do, and you can make something or find something, you want something that's got a thicker outer edge and a skinny interior. And the reason for that is it's gonna spin longer, and you want something to have an extended spin. If you've got something like that Ashford student spindle and you just find it won't hold enough twist for you to work with, you can glue pennies on the outside, put nails on the outside, anything that's gonna put weight on that outer edge. And so how I spin, and let's start with a little bit easier. It's always easier to learn how to spin with fibers that are in the sort of 2 to 3 inch range. I'm gonna take a bundle like that. I'm gonna put it over top of my pointer finger. It's just laid out across my finger like that. I don't put much more fiber than this at any one time. And my line is gonna just slip underneath that. And so what's gonna happen is that I'm going to have my thumb and my fingers are pinching and holding that fiber nice and tight. And I can pinch and pull fiber to just draft off of either side of my finger. Keep some twist going. And I think you can see there how the fiber is just catching and pulling off from either side of my finger. And what I like to do is get that twist coming up. You want to make sure with spinning, the whole thing is making sure you do not get twist entering into your fiber supply before you've drafted. And the drafting, what drafting means essentially is thinning your fibers out to the thickness you're wanting them to be. So once I've got lots there that's twisted, what I'm gonna do is put a little bit of water on my fingers, not the fingers that are holding the spindle. I'm gonna just run that up and down with a little bit of moisture. I'm gonna get a little bit more twist going on that line, and then I can roll it up under the spindle. That's where my fiber is stored. And I come back on, hook back on, and I'm good to keep going. So the drop, oh, there's the drop. The longer fibers, when I'm working with really, really long fibers, a lot of people will use a distaff. You can do that. I have decided after lots of time trying spinning line in different ways, I really love this method. I do a spinning from the fold method is what this is called. And I spin from the fold all of my long fibers. I find I get a nice smooth, even thread that way. I don't get as many little side splintery ends from the edges of my fiber. And I still have lots of strength when I've got a long fiber. So that's the spinning off the fold. Now I'm gonna pick up a lighter drop spindle for these shorter fibers, and I'll show you the difference in these two. Actually, here's two that are the same spindle, Ashford. So you can see the difference in scale, even the difference in height when I stand them on my edge of my laptop. So with these ones, they're hollowed out on the inside. Now the short, tiny, tiny one is really great for short fibers or slippery fibers. Because it's got so little weight to it, it is not going to drop as quickly on you. When you've got silky fibers, like nettle is very silky, one of the things that I found about it that's quite challenging is that the weight of the drop spindle just wants to pull away as you're spinning. But this spindle, you can see it doesn't hold twist nearly as long, so I have to catch it and get it going again. before it's going to stop on me. And keep going backwards because I don't want it going backwards. So this is going to give me a much fluffier line. And then when I spin the two together, I'm going to have something that's got this lovely, fluffy, silky softness, as well as the strength. Another little tip, you'll notice how I just flipped that puni over my wrist. So it's spinning out of my way. People often will put an elastic band or tuck this underneath their watch just to hold it so it's not falling down. You don't want your fiber hanging like this while you're spinning. You can kind of work out what's going to happen. You don't want to go there. So there's a little spinning lesson for you and a little fiber processing lesson. And I'm not sure where you are, but here in Vancouver, it is beginning of October, and I'm already harvesting some retted nettle, and I'm probably about a week or 2 weeks away from harvesting our milkweed and our dogbane having retted. So go check your fibers, see what you've got, start processing. Thanks, everyone.
All right, I stopped it. Thank you.
Perfect.
That was awesome.
Yay!
We have milkweed like all around our camp, or milkweeds right now with the seed fluffs.
Oh, fantastic.
I've been harvesting cattails, and there's dogbane everywhere too. So I'm like, oh.
Wonderful. Yeah. Awesome. Nice. Good, good.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. And I don't know what time it is, but I don't think that was too long. I think that was probably
it's 11:35,
right.
And we started a little late. So I think that's perfect.
Okay. Awesome. That's great. That's sweet. Good deal. Yay.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I hope the podcast sounded okay. I realized afterwards, I'm not sure what I said, but I realized I was going to mention this actually in the recording, and then I forgot. But I just was so separated from the gardens with the atmosphere being what it was, and having not been able to be in the gardens for a while. I don't even know what I talked about, but I don't think I talked at all about gardening. I remember I talked an awful lot about going to Beal Art. Anyway, whatever.
It was great. I mean, we were just talking about what's relevant in the moment too. I think we talked about fireweed, and you talked about nettles, and something I remember a lot was the conversation around fireweed is being seen as invasive because of the way it grows, and that's something that's me like, yeah, and like how you had to deal with like how to plant that really important plant in your gardens, and yeah, it was great.
Oh, good. Okay, good. There was some gardening in there. That's great.
Yeah.
Was there any gardening in that conversation? I have no idea.
Yeah, you talked about like consulting with the First Nations folks there about what to plant and in the garden.
Okay.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent.
So I'll work on this video today and see if I can get it on my Patreon, and then I'll see if I can post the podcast itself after that. And so I'll just let you know when it's out, and
super. You
can share it how you would like. So
awesome. Okay. Thanks, Kelly.
Thanks, Sharon.
Take care, hey?
You too.
Stay safe.
Thanks, you too.
Okay, bye-bye.